So Endfield 1.3 might have completely destroyed my plans. Because before this livestream, I was still sitting there trying to convince myself, okay, Gilberta is probably the smart choice. Meta support, future-proof, probably one of the safest pools you can make for an account. And honestly, my pool plans were already mostly decided. Camille was basically locked in the moment they revealed him, and Gilberta was looking like the responsible second choice. Simple. And then Hypergryph decided to reveal Mifu, Camille, and contingency contract, which immediately became a problem. Because Mifu turned out to be exactly the kind of unit I was worried she would be. A 6-star physical crush character with insane burst potential. So now, suddenly my safe and responsible pool plan is falling apart in real time. Especially because people already know I already committed to pulling Vampire Spear guy no matter what. And now that we finally know his name is Camille and that he's a Fire Vanguard, somehow the allegations have started again. This makes me look like I have some kind of Vanguard DPS addiction. Which is not true, by the way. It just happens that every character I want to play ends up being a Vanguard. Pogranichnik, Vanguard. Camille, a Vanguard. At this point, I'm starting to think Hypergryph is the problem. But today, I want to talk about both Mifu and Camille because after this live stream, I genuinely think both of these characters have insane potential, even without full numbers yet. Let's start with Camille first because this man immediately became one of my most anticipated characters the moment he appeared on screen. First off, Fire Vanguard, which already makes him interesting because fire teams are still lacking a dedicated support style enabler right now. And Camille looks like he might finally fill that role. What surprised me the most though is how active his gameplay looks. His overall kit is actually pretty straightforward compared to Mifu. Nothing too overloaded mechanically, but the way everything flows together looks really smooth. His battle skill applies hit infliction, hit susceptibility, and weakness, which is already a pretty loaded skill by itself. And the hit susceptibility duration from the showcase look really long too, like around 25 to 30 seconds. That alone already gives him really strong uptime for fire teams. But then they added the bat mark mechanic on top of that, and this mechanic might end up being one of the smoothest filling parts of his kit. When mark enemies die, the mark transfers to another target automatically. It's basically like Antel's basic skill, except the setup keeps carrying itself forward. Which means Camille maintains momentum really well in both solo and multi-wave content. Especially in things like Contingency Contract or Umbral Monument where enemies constantly rotate in. And don't get fooled by how simple his combo skill looks either. Whenever hit infliction gets consumed or absorbed, Camille performs this returning dash attack that restores SP and grants a link buff. That link buff enhances the next battle skill or ultimate used, which already sounds good by itself. But the important part is how it loops back into the rest of his kit, because his ultimate is where everything starts connecting together. His ultimate deals hit damage in a large area, applies hit infliction, restores SP, and puts him into a temporary Hunter state. During Hunter state, his next battle skill becomes Hunter Pursuit. Now, okay, this sounds complicated at first, but it's actually pretty simple. Hunter Pursuit basically converts his battle skill into an enhanced combo skill. So after using his ultimate, the next battle skill immediately triggers an enhanced combo skill instead. And the craziest part? Hunter Pursuit costs 0 SP. It actually generates SP instead, which becomes kind of absurd once you combine it with the rest of his kit. Because now you suddenly have his combo trigger restoring SP, his ultimate restoring SP, and Hunter Pursuit generating even more SP. That's a lot of rotation sustained for one character. Which is probably why Camille looks so fast gameplay-wise. He's constantly moving, constantly chaining actions, constantly feeding his own rotations, and the whole thing fits his Vampire Hunter aesthetic ridiculously well. We still don't know his exact numbers yet, so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend he is secretly broken. But mechanically, this character absolutely looks designed to stay active way longer than your average Vanguard. Especially in fire teams where hit interactions are happening non-stop. Which is exactly why I think Camille could end up being one of the most fun characters in 1.3. But seriously though, even without numbers, Camille already looks way more offensively designed than most Vanguards we've seen. Think about everything packed into his rotation. SP refund, combo chaining, mark transfers, hit application, hit susceptibility, and a lot of mobility. That's a lot happening for a character that supposedly isn't meant to stay on field. I'm not saying he's gonna replace dedicated carries, but I am saying there's a very real chance this guy ends up functioning as a legitimate sub-DPS, especially in fire teams. Lavatane would immediately look amazing with him. Rossi also looks fantastic, and depending on how the new 1.3 new gear set works, there's a decent chance Camille doesn't even end up wanting Frontiers as his best set, because Frontiers still works for generic Vanguard support setups. But if the new set rewards combo cycling, SP flow, or hit interactions, that could change things really fast. Also, the bat mark transferring between enemies is actually huge. You can't underestimate how valuable that is in actual combat scenarios, because constantly reapplying setup mechanics every single wave is usually what slows characters down. Camille potentially skipping all that setup entirely could make him feel really smooth in CC, which is dangerous for me personally because I already confirmed I was pulling for him before we even knew his kit. And now he somehow looks more fun than I expected. But honestly, I think Mifu might secretly end up being the stronger unit overall, because her kit looks absolutely ridiculous for physical teams. She's a physical guard focused around vulnerability, stacking, and crush. Well, it leans more towards crush. And from what they showed, this character might have one of the nastiest burst windows in the game. Her entire kit basically loops around, applying vulnerability, converting that into crush damage twice, and then immediately setting it up again. And the really important part is that just like other crush users, she scales incredibly well with Art's intensity, which immediately makes Swordmancer look terrifying on her and would most likely be her best set. And unlike a lot of our existing crush characters, well, there's actually only 2 of them, Mifu also has a built-in grouping, which makes her way more self-sufficient. Her combo activates once enemies hit at least 3 vulnerability stacks, applying physical susceptibility. Then her next battle skill transforms into the enhanced crush version immediately, meaning her rotations potentially becomes setup, double crush, setup again, and then double crush again. And the damage potential there looks really scary, especially because battle skill 3 apparently doesn't consume vulnerability stacks directly. Instead, it deals crush damage based on the stacks consumed by battle skill 2, which is huge because that means she'll be doing 2 crush damage in a single rotation, consuming only 3 to 4 vulnerable stacks. She cashes out twice. Also, her ultimate instantly giving access to battle skill 2 is really important because setup time is usually what stops combo heavy characters from becoming top tier. If Mifu can consistently enter burst windows quickly, yeah, this character might be insane. Team-wise, she immediately looks incredible with Lifeng, Chen, and Pog, which already sounds disgusting because she basically slots directly into teams that already wanted Enmin or Dapan. Except Mifu potentially brings even harder burst conversion. Rossi also looks really interesting with her, depending on how flexible her rotations end up being. But the biggest thing for me is that she doesn't just bring damage, she also has grouping, physical susceptibility, shielding, which turns into a sort of super armor, and combo consistency, which is an absurd amount of utility packed into one character. That's gonna be nasty, especially for CC style content. And if her actual numbers end up being really good, I genuinely think she could become one of the most impactful characters in version 1.3. Which now brings us back to the actual problem, Gilberta. Because before this livestream, I genuinely thought Gilberta was probably the smartest pool for my account. And to be fair, she still probably is. She's still one of the safest options long term. Meta support characters usually age incredibly well. But now, we suddenly have Mifu, Camille, and my pool plans completely exploding. The worst part is that I technically do have enough saved to potentially guarantee 2 of them. So realistically, there's nothing stopping me from getting both. Outside of the possibility that skipping Gilberta now ages horribly later on. But at the same time, Camille looks way too fun. Mifu looks potentially broken for physical teams, which is exactly what I need, and this patch genuinely feels like one of the coolest Endfield patches we've had in a while. So yeah, I might just commit. Anyway, let me know what do you guys think. Are you pulling for Mifu or Camille? And more importantly, should we actually skip Gilberta for this too? Because right now, I'm dangerously close to saying yes.